welcome to another video, or if this is the first video of mine you are watching, hey, how you doing? Today I am bringing you another one of those incoherent book babbles about a book that I actually not so relevantly finished. It's been a while. I went up to Edinburgh at the end of November to see G, as everyone probably knows, and on my way up there on the incredibly long train journey, I read this book, Wicked Like a Wildfire by Lana Popovic. I mentioned this a fair few times throughout 7 days of top 7 because it was fresh in my mind and I just finished reading it because obviously I was at G's when I filmed all of those. But it's been a while now, so sorry if my memory is a bit foggy on things. I will try my best. I don't really want to have to hold it up throughout the whole thing. This is the book. I feel like I should probably mention that I actually started reading this as a buddy read with Jess from Between the Lines. She's not been very active on her channel recently, but I did start reading it as a buddy read with her, and she got really busy with her uni work and her dissertation and such, and you know, her life, how dare she. So I just kind of stormed ahead and read it by myself, so sorry Jess. This book was in a fairy loot from some point. I cannot remember precisely which one, but I remember opening it and thinking, oh yeah, it's a really pretty cover, looks cool, looks nice and autumnal. I probably wouldn't have got to it so quick if it wasn't for Jess wanting to buddy read it, but I'm glad that I did because I ended up quite enjoying it. Anyway, let's just get into the babble and what the book is about and such. I will do first half spoiler free, second half spoilery. That rhymed. First things first, let's discuss what this book is about. So Wicked Like a Wildfire follows the story of twin sisters Iris and Melina, and they have a weird magical power. It says it in the blurb, so this isn't like a spoiler, but they have this magic power called a gleam. They're born with a gleam, a unique way of manipulating beauty through magic. So there's this weird magic system going on. You know, that's a main part, but it's not the main part. This book focuses a lot on family relationship, and Iris and Melina have a really crappy relationship with their mum, and they don't seem to have any other relatives in the town. The way the magic works was Iris can turn flowers into fractals and Melina can turn emotions into music, and their mum, Jasmina, can like bake places into pastries. That's kind of all very alliterative, isn't it? At first it was all very confusing and I didn't really understand like how the magic worked or where it was going or what the point in it was. And I was very confused, but as the story goes on it definitely explains more and you kind of get to understand what the magic is a lot more. So again, in the blurb, not a spoiler, but quite early on in the book, although Iris and Melina have a really terrible relationship with their mum, something terrible happens to their mother and it kind of leaves Iris and I can't say her name, I'm just going to call her Lena because that's what she's called throughout most of the book, so Iris and Lena. It leaves them kind of in a position where they have to work out what their life is, who their mum is, and what is going on, because everything is not what it seems and it's all confusing and there's mysterious happenings going on and such. I can't really explain any more than that without giving things away, but a terrible occurrence leaves them in a confusing situation. It's all very dramatic, the way it all happens, and the introduction of like the other characters and the intrigue and the mystery is all very dramatic, but definitely the more I got into it, the more the intrigue was growing and I was enjoying it. It wasn't like astounding, but the intrigue was growing and I was enjoying it. It became quite addictive the more into the mystery you got woven, so I mean, reading it in the train journey time that I did, I think was a fantastic way to do it because I had the time to get like really involved in the mystery of what the hell is happening in this book. Do you know what I mean? Overall, for the writing style, I can't say that it was necessarily anything outstanding or memorable or spectacular. Because of the way the magic works, the author writes a lot into your senses, like your vision for Iris's like fractals and tastes for Jasmina's pastries and like music, and it's quite sensual because of the way the magic works. But I feel like there was so many missed opportunities for this book to be a lot more atmospheric than it was. And I feel like that, for me, in the writing style, is what fell short. There was almost too much attention on the sensual side of things and not enough attention on the overall atmosphere. So I feel like, you know, if more attention was taken to the atmosphere, it could have been better. But that's not saying it was bad, like there were atmospheric parts. But for example, there's one scene in here where one of the characters is in a very religious place and some sort of dark magic happens, and I would feel like that sort of, like, that location with that occurrence, like, you could have such an atmospheric scene. And I just felt like how it was delivered fell short on how it could have been delivered. I hope that makes sense. Sorry if this is all a bit back and forth. I keep like remembering things and such. As I say, it's been a little while since I actually read it, so sorry if this is like an incredibly babbly babble. But now I'm going to talk about the characters, which I've already kind of touched upon. When I started reading this book, it's written in, is it first person? Yeah, it's first person from Iris's point of view. And when I first started reading it, I couldn't stand Iris. There was something that happens early on in the book and I just thought, whoa, I'm not gonna like this character, which means I'm not gonna like this book because it's all from her point of view. And immediately I was like, oh no. Alas, things change, character development happens, there is an arc in her character. I did grow to like her more than I did in those first few chapters, and that occurrence that happened in the first few chapters was never again mentioned, so kind of pointless, and a pointless reason for me to start disliking someone for it to never really crop up again. So Iris is the one that can turn flowers into fractals, and as I've already mentioned, it was a very confusing magic to start with, and I think for Iris's character, she seemed quite confused as well, so you're kind of learning about her magic along with her. I feel like kind of the opposite is true with Lena. Like, she starts off being an adorable, cuddly angel that could do no wrong. And I mean, she doesn't like turn into a horrible person, but like throughout her character development, I felt like she started off too perfect and you kind of learn about her imperfections as you go. And towards the end, I was kind of thinking like, she's really selfish and mainly selfish. She does something incredibly selfish. You know, it's life, everyone's flawed, etc. But yeah, there's things that changed my opinions about both of the characters throughout. And their mother, obviously, something terrible happens to their mother quite early on, so we don't really learn too much about her. But there's lots of other side characters that were nice enough. Honestly, all of the characters were nice enough. I didn't fall for any of them, I didn't love any of them. They were all just nice enough. I didn't have any strong feelings for them, which is kind of disappointing. Again, like with the atmospheric read, like there was no atmosphere building, there was no like intense character that I really loved. And I like to read about character. Like, you can have a boring book with really cool characters, but you can't have an average book with average characters because it just makes it average. So there's probably a decent point to say. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It wasn't bad, I enjoyed it enough. As I said, I did enjoy it enough. The intrigue was there, it was an addictive read. And sometimes I think about it and think, oh yeah, that was actually really good, it deserved more than 3. But I can't bring myself to give it more than 3 because, as I say, average book with average characters. It was good, it was nice enough. I wouldn't put it at a 2 star, no way. 3, 3.5, but I don't really do half stars, so 3 is fine. And that's probably all I can say spoiler free. I feel like I've already been talking for ages, so I might try and do this spoilery part really quickly. But yes, no more spoiler free. Here is where spoilers begin. Okay, I feel like I need to address the thing that happens early on that I don't like in Iris. I can't remember exactly where it was, and I think, because obviously Iris is this like angsty, she hates her mum, the world hates her, the world's out to get her, no one loves her, she's unlovable, that sort of person, which immediately I was like, annoying. And then she sneaks out to get drunk and do drugs at night. Sorry, my dog's barking. Sneaks out at night to go to a party and get drunk and do drugs and stuff, and I was like, this isn't a character I can relate to in any way. This isn't a character I'm comfortable with. I'm not into this. But as we kind of see more about the relationship between her and her mum and how her mum does push her to believe she's unlovable, then it's more understandable. However, the going out and doing drugs and getting drunk thing is kind of like never mentioned again. I feel like it was just plugged to make her seem more rebellious and like out there. Like, do you know what I mean? Because it was never really touched upon again. But yeah, so I'm glad it wasn't, because I felt it was unnecessary. Like, the relationship did enough to prove Iris's point that she felt unlovable and she was kind of rebellious. I just don't think that extra was needed. As I've said, as her character arc progressed, I got to like her a lot more. I did feel incredibly sorry for her in the way that her mum treated her, but then when you go back and when you consider the broader story and how her mum was preparing to lose them and she couldn't let her daughters fall in love because they were hiding from such and such, and like, you can kind of understand why she did it. But if she thought it was all inevitable and it was going to happen at some point, if you think you're going to lose one of your daughters, you don't make one of them disposable. You give them both as much love as you can, surely. But I mean, as I say, we don't really know much about Jasmina, so we don't know her reasoning behind everything. Who knows? But it was all iffy, that relationship, and I did feel sorry for Iris. And when, you know, she was like kind of confessing her love for, I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy that she was into, it was cute, and I felt like she deserved to be loved, especially after Lena coming out and saying that she's been in love and she's the whole reason that everything kind of came to be the way it is. Like, what the fuck, girl? No. Which brings me on to Melina. She, as I said, is a ball of sunshine and rainbows and loveliness, and then ends up being incredibly selfish, breaking the one most important rule that their mum set for them, to never fall in love, and she falls in love, and everyone's entitled to love, obviously. I just feel like she should have said something, and I understand why she didn't, because obviously she was in a lesbian relationship and she was worried about how her family would deal with that, so I can understand why she was scared about it, especially coming out to Lena, because Lena's supposed to be this, like, I don't know, rebellious, rowdy character. But, you know, they're sisters, and it was accepted, and it was lovely, but I was still kind of bitter with her for keeping it a secret when it was such an important factor in their lives. Like, it was the one thing they were told never to do for a reason, and she kept it a secret. I think that was incredibly selfish of her, but I can kind of understand it, so, Fio, the guy that ends up being Death. Immediately, I didn't trust him. I didn't trust him from the beginning. Melina obviously also doesn't trust him from the beginning. There was no way in hell I think anyone could have trusted him. He was way too shifty. However much I knew he would be involved and I couldn't trust him, I was not expecting him to end up being Death himself. I thought he was just going to be like on the inside helping to like drain her of her powers or something, but not to the extent of actually being Death himself, and that was a bit of a twist I wasn't expecting. But no way to him. He was not a chance in hell was he a trustworthy character at all. No way. As I mentioned before, the fact that the characters were all nice enough kind of meant that I didn't love any of the characters. That kind of in turn meant that the character relationships were all nice enough and I wasn't like falling hard for any ship. I mean, Iris and the guy she was into was cute because of the way they like finally came together. It was cute, but it wasn't anything I was like exceptionally into. It was just nice enough. And I feel like ultimately that sums up how I feel about most of this book. It was nice enough. Didn't fall for any of the characters, the atmosphere fell short, but the intrigue and the mystery was there, and I did find it an addictive read. 3 out of 5 stars. There we go. I'm gonna leave it at that. It's now like pitch black. There was actually some daylight when I started filming. There's not anymore, so I can only apologise for the way the lights probably faded throughout this video. Very sorry. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that. If you've read this book, feel free to chat to me away. Always up for that. If you fancy giving us a thumbs up, go do that. Chat to me down in the comments. If you aren't subscribed and fancy subscribing, I'm always eternally grateful for that. I upload every Sunday and Wednesday and some odd days in between if I'm feeling generous, and I will see you next time. Bye!